Hi, I'm Seraphim. This video is for empaths, energy sensitives, and recently awakened who are struggling to deal with those in their lives who are still unconscious. The 4 steps I'm going to give you today will help you to find common ground with those in your life who are still unawakened and deal with the dynamic from a much more heart-centered space. So if you're feeling super isolated in your awakening, today I'm going to help you to reconnect. Welcome to the Empowered Empath. Awakening is a profound shift in our perception that alters the way we experience the rest of our lives. But once you've made this shift, it can become increasingly difficult to relate to our unawakened or less conscious friends and relatives, or even our partner. So today I'm going to give you 4 steps to help cultivate more harmony between yourself and the unawakened people in your life, and to do this in a way that does not compromise your own vibration. Step 1 is have compassion. At one time, you were not awakened. So think back to what that was like. What kind of thoughts dominated your mind? How did you feel about life? How did you feel in general? The truth is that you can relate to someone who is unconscious or unawakened because you've been there. You do have a point of reference. You understand that someone who is still unconscious very likely has an unpleasant inner world because they're not intentionally governing it. So just think back to what this was like for you, and most importantly, what did your relationship with yourself and your mind look like prior to your awakening? What did your own resistance look like? How open and receptive were you to changing your own ideas, especially if it was a family member who was coming to you and saying, hey, you're doing it wrong. So think back on this, put yourself in their shoes, empath. This is your superpower. So now you have the pleasure of starting to use it for the highest and best good of all. Remember that everyone is a spiritual being, and that no one is more spiritual technically than anybody else. This is a trap that the ego likes to throw up early and often along the spiritual path. So we have to constantly be careful not to measure ourselves against someone else and decide we are more spiritual or we are better because we meditate or we do yoga or we're vegan, whatever it is. You are not better or more spiritual than any other soul. So be mindful of this, come back to compassion and empathy, and allow people to just awaken in their own time. This is step 1, the first step of cultivating more peace of mind around your unawakened loved ones. Step 2, honor discretion. Just because you know something does not mean that you should share it. And this manifests in a few different ways. So on the one hand, you're very likely to start noticing where your friends and family can make fairly minor shifts and create a great deal more happiness or harmony for themselves in their own lives. And naturally, you want to be able to share that. The problem is, from a lower state of consciousness, unsolicited advice pretty much always just feels like judgment. And in all fairness, if you think about it, you are pretty much telling them that they aren't good enough the way they are. They should probably change something. So think back to your own awakening and recall that throughout that process, you had experiences that provided the supporting evidence for your new understanding and awareness. And you can't really expect someone who doesn't have that experience already invested to just take you at your word. And it's okay. Understand that if you just dump information on your friends and family, if they're not aligned with that information, they just can't receive it. It's nothing personal. Honestly, don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. Just give it time. Wait for your friends and family to come to you and ask you for advice. Allow it to be a natural process in this way. And trust that if you are living in your principles, and you're living in your integrity of spirit, they will come to you. The other piece of this is know that when they do come to you for advice, they may not take it. Accept this. It is okay. And please do not take this personally. Be assured that if nothing else, you have at the very least planted a seed, and that maybe not today and maybe not tomorrow, but eventually that seed may grow. Okay, another way the need to honor discretion manifests is in regard to precognitive or extrasensory information that you receive about other people. It's super important to exercise discretion around this, and I know how complicated that can feel in your personal life. So, a couple of examples. Let's say your partner, there's something wrong, you can tell, you can feel something is wrong, but they keep telling you everything's fine. They don't want to talk about everything's fine. You can tell that everything isn't fine, something's wrong. Or you have a friend and they're in a relationship, they're super excited about this relationship, but deep down, you know it's not going to last. You know it's not going to work out. But you also know they're not going to hear what you have to say about it because they're so excited about this person. So what do? Why did you receive this information? What was the point? Very often, when you receive this information, it's not about sharing the information, but rather what is it you are doing with that information. So, in the case of a partner, you can tell something is wrong, but they don't want to talk about it. The lesson here is very likely for you. Empaths have a super hard time when people aren't feeling well. When people are feeling badly, we want to fix it. But very often, honoring that person's need for space is a way of showing love and affection just as surely as jumping in there and needing to fix it. So it may not have anything to do with needing to draw that information out from the other person in terms of what exactly is wrong. It's not necessarily that you should be fixing it, but rather how can you support them in the way that they're feeling without needing to change the way that they feel. Allow them to feel what they feel. Just be present with them in that. That very likely is the lesson in a partner who isn't being forthcoming or doesn't want to share. In terms of your friend who's struggling with her relationship, the question for you may be, how is it you can best support them through that relationship, knowing that it may not last? Sometimes the best thing we can do is ask insightful questions that get our friends and family looking at things from different perspectives. And when somebody's perspective shifts, all of their life path potentials shift. And this is the key to how we influence change in other people. You can never force change, but absolutely we can be incredibly powerful forces to influence change simply by helping people come to an awareness of their own emotions or their own internal state. This is one of the gifts that we have to share as empaths. Also, a very large part of this gift that you have is learning how to work with this information to the highest and best good of all. Step 3, focus on your lesson, not theirs. The unawakened or unconscious people in our lives bring us blessings in the form of challenges. They are asking us to grow and to define our own experience, and they also teach us to react less and to see their experience for what it is, a lower vibrational expression in resistance to the universal abundance. They call on us to practice our soul perspective and to hone our sense of connectedness and unconditional love. Unconditional love. That's tougher than most people realize. They also highlight for us areas where we may be holding resistance against lower vibrational experiences or that which we see as not spiritual. And this is resistance in us. When we are able to regard these lower vibrational experiences with compassion instead of with judgment, we create more harmony with ourselves and the unconscious people in our lives, and we also begin to heal this rift within ourselves. There are always going to be times when we are not at our spiritual best. that doesn't invalidate our spiritual experience. It doesn't make it any less meaningful or any less necessary. So the point isn't to eliminate lower vibrational experiences, but to rather integrate them, experience them, learn from them, and hone a greater sense of connection and compassion through that, a greater sense of understanding, using that experience to connect more deeply with others. This is how we focus on our lesson and don't trouble ourselves so much with the lessons of others. Step 4, let people go with love. Something a lot of people don't realize when they start a spiritual awakening is that not everyone is coming with them on that journey right now. Some people may even be downright hostile to your new spiritual ideas, depending on where they're at in terms of their level of consciousness. And some of these people are going to exit your life. That is okay. Let these people go with love. You may also come to realize there are certain circumstances that you can't tolerate anymore, like abusive relationships. And it's important to honor this. A spiritual awakening can leave you feeling isolated, lonely, like some ambiguous sense of belonging you didn't even realize that you had is suddenly gone and you're a complete outsider. You may find yourself having explosive conflicts with people, or other people are just kind of quietly drifting out of your life. Once again, this is okay. As you raise your vibration, you are naturally going to come into a place where you just may not be in alignment with certain people anymore. Allow this to happen naturally. Now, a word of caution here, we always have to be careful about ego. This isn't about being better than anybody. We talk about raising our vibration and it sounds like we're saying we're better than someone. It's not about being better than anyone. This is about simply being. And as we are in our experience, as we are simply being authentically in that experience, we recognize if something doesn't feel right in that experience and we let it go. We let it go without any judgment. This isn't about, I'm too good for this. It's not about that. If we're simply not in alignment with something, we allow that to unfold however that's going to unfold. And there's a profound lesson here in letting go of attachment to outcome, which is one of the hardest things for us to learn to do, especially when we want things to turn out a certain way. So this is a beautiful lesson for us, even though it can be incredibly painful to have to let certain people go. But if we let those people go with love, we may be hopeful that they may come back into our lives, but not in a needy or clingy way, rather in a way that simply hopes to see them flourish. So if you find there are people who are exiting your life, try not to take this personally and just honor when it's time for your paths to diverge. A final note here on step 4 is that simply being unawakened may bring with it bad behaviors for sure, but as long as there's no abuse happening, this isn't a reason to outright ditch people. Stick with the people in your life who love you and who support you, even if they don't necessarily understand exactly what it is that you're going through. Honestly, more and more people are awakening every day, and it may surprise you who's next. There's also incredible value in having our ideas challenged, especially by people who encourage us to do some critical thinking. So this isn't always a bad thing, and it's totally okay to disagree, just so long as there's no hostility involved. I want to put the question to you. Is there someone you can think of in your life whom you are holding judgment towards as less spiritual or as unawakened? And how could you shift your energy towards them to be more inclusive of their perspective? Or is it time to let your paths diverge? Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm new to YouTube. If you like this video, please like and share it with your friends. It helps me out a ton. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. If you'd like to learn more about my practice or book a personalized session with me, you can visit me at tarotbyseraphim.ca or on Facebook, and also visit me on Facebook to join the Empowered Empath Facebook group, which I will link to all that good stuff in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back next Thursday. Blessings to you, my loves.